One of white's strongest chess openings is the Ruy Lopez opening. This opening occurs after the moves 1e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, and finally the key move bishop b5. With this move, white is pressuring the knight on c6, setting up short castling, and he's also ready to take control of the center of the board with moves like c3 and d4. So how do you punish this opening by white? Well, it's not easy, but if you want to punish the Ruy Lopez, I recommend the move 3, knight to f6, aka the Berlin defense. The Berlin is easily black's simplest and strongest defense against the Ruy Lopez. And again, if you want to punish white on move 3, this is about as close as it gets. Now, white has a wide variety of responses here. For example, white has many sidelines as well as the main lines, castles and d3. And in this video, we're going to cover literally every single line by white that you could possibly face, including bishop takes c6, bishop d3, queen to e2, knight to c3, short castles, d3, and many, many more. So literally, regardless of what white does in this position, I've got you covered. So let's go ahead and flip this board. This is a black video, so we're going to cover from the black perspective here. Let's start with the sidelines. All right, this bishop on c6. What happens if white takes on c6 and then takes on e5? It's a very common idea. So again, the Ruy Lopez, white pressures that knight on c6. What happens if he takes there and then takes on e5? Well, it turns out this is so easy to deal with as black. If white takes here, what you want to do is you take back with this d pawn. So d takes c6 is the move for black. And now here, yes, the pawn on e5. Technically, it is hanging, but if white takes that, he's basically busted. I mean, you got to be like laughing out loud if white does that. If white takes here, it's a huge mistake. All you have to do is black, queen d4. That is the key move. If you know this, you're already a little bit better, as you can see by the eval bar on your left. So what's the idea? We have a double attack against the knight and the pawn on e4. If white goes back, all you have to do, you take the pawn. Now, white has two choices, queen to e2 and king to f1. Neither of those are very good. You are literally punishing white right out of the opening in the Ruy Lopez. What more could you ask for? Now, if white goes king f1, the opening's over. White has lost the opening. His king can't castle. You can do whatever you want. Bishop g4, intending long castles is fine. Bishop c5, intending short castles is fine. You're just better here. Now, if white goes queen to e2, that is the better move here for white. You still get a little bit of an edge. What you do, you take on e2, white takes back. Now, already, white cannot castle. That is very good for you. So your plan, bishop f5, followed by long castles. For example, d3, long castles, black is better. You want to go bishop c5, rook he8. You're just better here as black. You're already punishing white straight out of the opening. So, overall, bishop takes c6 is just not a good idea. Even if white doesn't take on e5, if he, for example, castles here, you can just go bishop d6 and you've got a great game as black. Now, there's one other kind of bad bishop move that you sort of need to know about. If white goes bishop d3, white's idea is he is defending e4 with the bishop, but this move is just bad. First of all, it's bad positionally. White is going bishop b5 and then literally going bishop d3 on the next move. So white is wasting a tempo. Black is sort of playing as white now. Black is sort of up a tempo now. And beyond that, tactically, this move does not work. And black can play the absolutely shocking move, knight takes e4. And if you remember this move, followed by the idea of d5 and e4, already you're better as black. Here's the problem for white. If you don't take the knight, you're down a pawn. If you do take the knight, then black goes d5, and black's plan is simple. He wants to go e4, and white is getting crushed straight out of the opening. What more could you ask for? Here, if white takes on d5, you just take back with the queen, and your plan here, bishop g4, long castles, and you attack white, and you win. It's that simple. Okay, it's a little more complicated than that. There's still a chess game to be played, but you're already like more than one pawn better as black out of the opening. That is a ridiculous advantage. Now, if white goes back with the bishop, then obviously your plan, right now you are down a piece, but you gain it back right away with the move e4. So this is super, super strong. What can white do here? I mean, if he takes on e4, you take back with the pawn, you attack the knight and keep the attack going. For example, bishop takes, d takes. Where can the knight go? You can't go here. You can't go there. The queen controls that. You can't go here or here. The knight controls those squares. Where can you go? You can go to G1 and then black, queen to G5. You pressure G2. White is just completely busted. So that does not work. What else can white do? Well, white can sort of go forward. This might be the least bad option, but even here, black is just perfectly fine. You take on F3, white takes back, and here you have a couple of options. The easy, safe option would be bishop E7, or say bishop C5, followed by castling. The more ambitious option here is actually bishop D6. Now, why do you play this? Do you lose a pawn on D5? Yes, the pawn is undefended, but the reason you want to do that, if white takes that pawn, then white can basically never castle, as you're going to have this discovered attack. Bishop takes H2, hitting the king with check, and then capturing the queen. For example, if white takes here, we're going to castle. And now, if white castles, short castles, you play the move bishop takes H2, you hit the king with check, the king has to move, and then you take the queen. So I don't even have to show you that. That is like literally the oldest trick in the book. So black just wins there. If white doesn't castle, you go rook E8, you hit the king, and you just develop and you win. Like, it's pretty... Black here has a huge advantage. If you can get this as black, I hope you can win against equal opponents here as black. So that's it for bishop D3. So far, the two bishop moves are just really bad for white. What else can white do here? Queen E2 is a pretty simple move to play against. Now, this does have an idea. It's not the dumbest move ever. White is defending his pawn on E4. However, it's just not that dangerous. Black here, he gets a great game. All you have to do, you just go bishop C5 and short castles, and you're better. So, bishop C5, what can white do? Castles. Castles. And as promised, black is a tiny bit better out of the opening. What more could you want? Okay, now it's equal. Now it's a little better. Black's at least equal, if not better here. And the basic idea, you can basically go D6, knight E7, knight G6, reroute the knight to a better square, and you're good. For example, D3, D6, knight C3, knight E7. The point being, you want to go knight G6, you want to go C6, you want to go H6, and black is just doing fantastic. There's just not that much to worry about. So queen E2, easy peasy lemon squeezy, as they say. Do they say that still? Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Knight C3. This move is a little more difficult to deal with. Now, black here. I have 3 recommendations for black because they lead to wildly different positions. And if you like boring games, there's an option for you. If you like weird games, there's an option for you. And if you like ultra concrete, tactical, correct play, if that's a word, I've got an option for you. All right, the boring option, bishop b4. You play just like white. Both sides bring out their knights. Both sides bring out their bishops. This is the 4 knights Ruy Lopez, or Ruy Lopez 4 knights. Whatever you want to call it, it's equal. Black is fine. Black's plan is simple. Castles, d6, and playing from there. There's just not that much white can do. For example, castles, d3, d6. It's as boring as it gets, but if you like boring chess, it works great. It's a great opening. So here, the one thing you got to know, if white takes your knight, it's not dangerous. You take back, and you're doing just fine. If white instead goes for an idea like, I don't know, knight to e2, intending knight g3, you're fine. You just do the same. Knight e7, intending knight g6, and you're fine. For example, c3, bishop a5, knight g3, c6, bishop a4, knight g3. Now you want to go d5 and rook e8, maybe h6. You're fine. Like, you just got nothing to worry about here as black. Computer gives white having a tiny microscopic advantage, but you're fine. Again, if you like boring equal positions, and I don't mean boring in a bad way, if you just like simple equal chess as black, this is your move. Next, if you like weird positions as black, bishop d6 is your move. And this move looks ridiculous. It violates opening principles. In the opening, you don't want to bring your bishop to d6 unless you have a very good reason to do it, because it blocks in this pawn and it blocks in this bishop. Like, where can your bishop go? If you don't move these pawns, the bishop can't go anywhere. So this move looks weird, but it works in this position. Black's plan is simple. Castles, rook e8, and then you move the bishop to c5 or to f8 with the rook off that square. For example, d3, castles, castles. Now you can go for a fast rook e8. You can also go for a fast a6 and h6. For example, a6, bishop a4, h6, bishop b3, rook e8. Now, all you have to do to complete development, you go bishop c5 or f8, and then either d6 or d5, opening up the center, activating your bishop, and so on. And black's fine. So why is black going bishop d6 and then moving it again? Well, if you go back, you kind of have to move the bishop to castle and go rook e8, so it makes sense. If you go bishop c5, for example, I don't know, h3, bishop c5, yes, you waste a tempo, but your position is so perfectly solid that it doesn't matter. Again, computer gives the most microscopic of microscopic edges for white. This is just equal, so you're fine. Don't worry about it. So bishop d6, if you like weird positions, you do this, you castle, you go rook to e8, and that's your setup. And then you find something else to do, a6, h6, bishop f8, bishop c5, and so on. Now, if you like playing the absolute strongest moves for black, and you like tactical play, and you like being aggressive, and maybe sacrificing material, and maybe playing the top engine lines, the top computer moves, knight d4, baby. Knight d4 all day, every day, twice on Sunday, 6 ways from Sunday, whatever you want to say. Knight d4 is your move. So this move is complicated. You're jumping in with the knight. You're pressuring this knight. You're pressuring the bishop. And in the process, you are giving up this pawn. So why would black do this? And the reason is everything works for black tactically. It just works. I'm going to show you. I'm going to prove it to you. This just works. You are equal. You're doing great. If white takes this pawn, whenever white goes knight takes e5, your automatic response in this line, queen e7. Automatically. That is your plan. Queen e7. You drive back the knight. Don't even try to go f4. If you can't figure out a move after this as black, I mean, you can go c6, then d6, whatever you want. This is just too weakening for white. So don't do this as white. It's bad. Bad move. White has to go knight f3. Now here, what you do, you take the bishop, you deflect the knight on c3 away from the defense of the e4 pawn, and then you just take the pawn. Knight takes, queen takes e4, check, and you're fine, if not better. And if white goes queen e2 trying to block, you take, and now you can go bishop c5, castles, whatever you want. Your king is going to be castled, his king will not, and you have the bishop pair. So knight takes e5, it just doesn't work. Queen e7 gives black the edge. What about if white takes on d4? This is bad because now, after e takes, you hit the knight with tempo. The knight has to move. Here, if white goes back, like knight to e2 or anywhere else, black is just doing fantastic. You take this pawn and you're doing great. So the only good move here from white actually is e5. If white wants to keep the game equal or balanced, he's got to do this, but it's not good. What you do, you take on c3, white takes, you take this pawn, black takes back here, and then you just go bishop c5. You're pressuring f2, white's going to castle, you're going to castle, you're fine. You got a great game. It's that simple. Chess is simple sometimes. In this line, very, very simple. All right, what else can white do? He can castle. This line is a little more complicated. Here, what you have to do, you take the bishop and you win the bishop pair. Knight takes, knight takes. Now your pawn on e5 is undefended. What you do, you go c6 first, drive back the knight goes back, then you go d6. And here you got a very solid setup. You want to go bishop e7, short castles, and you do have those two bishops. And if you don't know, when you have the two bishops like this in a normal game that will probably open up, The bishop pair, aka the two bishops, white only has one, you have two. That's worth about half a pawn, meaning black here in the long run should be a little bit better. Maybe I'll do a video in the future about how to use the bishop pair, but needless to say, black here is doing great. The only dangerous idea, if white goes d4, here white is castled, you are not. White wants to open up the center because he's castled and you're not. You do not. You do not want to take on d4. You're not castled yet. You're not safe. Your king is not safe. What you do here is queen c7. You defend the pawn. That way, if white takes here, you take back and you're fine. Like e takes, the pawn is defended, you're fine. You go bishop e7, castles, you're fine. If not, even a little better as black. So castle's not dangerous. So far, knight takes, not dangerous. Knight takes, not dangerous. Castles, not dangerous. What else can white do here? Well, the two big daddy moves, the two granddaddy moves in this position are bishop to c4 and bishop to a4. Both of those moves keep the bishop alive. That is the reason you want to do it. You're trying to keep the bishop alive, but black is fine. Black's plan here, very, very simple. Against either of those moves, you just go bishop c5. And as usual, if white takes on e5, you just go queen e7, and you've got a great game. For example, bishop a4. In this line, we go bishop c5. If white takes on e5, actually queen e7 works, but here castles works even better. And white's in a little bit of a bind. Let's say he castles. This is kind of a mistake. Now, black here is down a pawn. White does have that pawn for free. But black is going to get such a big attack. As you can see by the eval bar, black has a huge edge. It's massive. What you do, you go d6. You drive back the knight, knight f3. Then you go bishop g4. And look at this. You have the bishop and the knight piling up on that knight. That poor knight on f3. That knight is getting blown off the board. And the problem is, when you take there, white cannot take back with the queen. He must take back with the g-pawn, and that is going to ruin his pawn structure. For example, h3, bishop takes, g takes. Look at these pawns here. White is in so much trouble. Black can go, for example, knight h5, intending queen h5, knight f4. I mean, black is just, this is not good for white. Trust me on that. So, bishop h4, we go bishop c5. Knight takes is no good. Let's say white castles. All right, black, no problem. We castle, and if white goes d3, we go d6. And we are just equal here. We're equal. We've got our knight on d4. This knight sooner or later will trade for the knight on f3. We can go, if we want, c6, then d5. We're just equal. We've got a great game. You can also go, say, a6, b5, maybe just straight up a5, c6, b5, gaining space. Black's got a good game. A very typical Italian style game. All right, bishop c4. This is the main line here. This is white's strongest move as usual. We ignore the pawn and go bishop c5, just developing, castling, and counterattacking. Now, if white castles, we go d6. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Nothing to it but to do it. If white takes the knight, we take back with the, if white takes the knight, we take back with the pawn, drive away white's knight. We're good. We're doing fine. If white takes this pawn, in this position, queen e7 is very, very strong. If the knight goes back, then our idea is d5. This is the key move. If you know this, you're doing great. The point is, this pawn is pinned to the king by the queen. It cannot move, as then the queen does attack the king. What else can white do, though? If white takes on d5 with the bishop, what we do is simply bishop g4. Again, we're pressuring that knight, and black gets a huge attack. For example, d3, castles, and black here is crashing through. Black has so many threats. For example, knight takes d5, then knight takes, then rook takes is being threatened, as white's king is stuck on e1, and again, this pawn cannot move, it's pinned. Whereas if white castles short, he's going to be under such a ridiculous attack so fast. It's just, he's getting blown off the board here. If white takes on d5 with the knight, knight takes d5. In that case, the knight no longer defends e4. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Queen takes e4. You win that pawn. The knight goes back. You go bishop g4. Again, you've got everything overloading this knight. White is in trouble. The computer says equal, but I mean, look at the pieces. Just look at this and appreciate this. Everything is attacking black. Everything is attacking all of these squares. Black can castle long if he wants to, and castle short. Do you really want to play this as white? I sure don't. I mean, if you get this in online blitz, you're going to be winning so many of these games. So overall, to review, if white goes knight c3, this is the safe option. This is the weird, quirky option. And this is the ultra aggressive tactical gambit line that I play myself. It works really well. And that's literally everything white can do against it. So knight c3, not dangerous in the slightest. All right, what else can white do? White can go, let's see. He can go for the move. Did I miss anything? d4. Okay. This is the last of white's sidelines. d4 is not good. After d4, we are going to cover d3 and short castles. So stay with me. d4, this move, knight f6, then d4. d4. This move is bad. All you have to do is take the pawn. You just take. It's just like the Italian game. In the Italian, if white's bishop's on c4 and white goes for a fast d4, you just take the pawn. You just take it. So you take the pawn, and now what can white do? His two main ideas here are e5 and castles, but neither of them are dangerous. As you can see, black is doing just fine here, at least equal. If white goes e5, the move you need to know is knight to e4. Now, typically in the open games in general, in these e4, e5 openings, if white goes e5, very often knight g4 is the better move, but in this position, knight e4 is a little better. Now, the basic idea, white's going to castle. You drive back the bishop. If white takes here, you take back with a d-pawn, and you're doing great. The bishop goes back, and then you just go d5. And black here is totally fine. He can go, say, bishop e7 or d6, then castles. And again, black has nothing to worry about. Instead, if white castles, that is perhaps the more dangerous option. Here, black, first of all, you drive back the bishop. a6, white goes bishop c4. And this right here is actually a line from the two knights defense against the Italian opening, where white just goes bishop c4, then d4, giving up a pawn, then castles. What you do here, just like in the Italian, you just take on e4. Knight takes e4. Now, here is white's idea. There's a really, key tactical idea that white is going to use. It's a trap. You have to know this, or you have to see it when you're playing the game. Either way, you have to respond correctly. White goes rook e1. Now, here's black. Our rook is being defended. If we go, f5, white can just keep attacking it. It's not pretty. You don't want to do that. Instead, d5 is the move. Now here, what white is going to do, this looks a little shocking. He's going to sack his bishop. Bishop takes d5. If he doesn't do that, if he goes bishop d3, I mean, you can just go bishop e7 or d6 or c5, castles, probably bishop e7, and you're fine. If he takes the pawn, you take it back. And here, white's idea, this looks like the dumbest move ever. It's not. It is the dumbest smart move ever. Knight c3. What is the idea? This knight is pinned. The knight can't move because then the king is under check. If you take the knight, your queen on d5 is undefended. You lose the queen. So if you take the knight, it's a blunder. I'm giving it, if I can give it 10 question marks here, I would. White wins the queen. He just takes your queen. Let's go back here. Your queen is not defended. White attacks your queen. If you take the pawn, white takes your queen anyway. So what do you do here? You retreat the queen back, and ideally, if you know what you're doing, d7 is the best square. d8 is also okay. a5 also okay. But the best square for the queen here is d7. And the reason d7 works over d8, it's a little complicated, but there are some lines where the queen does need to defend this diagonal and also f7. So overall, d7 is the best square for the queen. White is going to win back the knight. Then you just go bishop e7, followed by castles, and you're doing fantastic. White eventually will probably win this pawn back, but even if he does, you have the two bishops. And even in an endgame, those bishops will be a little better. Sorry. Even in an endgame, those bishops will be a little bit better than the bishop and the knight. So black here is at least equal, if not a little bit better. So black here is just doing great. So overall, d4, nothing to worry about. That leaves white's only two good options. If white wants to fight for an edge, he has to play d3 or castles. Now, let's start with the move d3. This is arguably the more combative option. It keeps more pieces on the board. Now, here, what you do as black, if you play the Italian game, you're going to know exactly what to do. Or, sorry, if you play the Italian as black, all you have to do, bishop c5. Very, very simple. Now, here, your main plan, you have two ideas. One is you can go, for example, castles and d6 and just play a typical Italian position. Beyond that, you can also go for the idea of knight d4. We saw that earlier in the 4 knights Ruy Lopez, and that works really, really well in certain lines. So what can white do here? Well, white can castle. He can go knight c3. He can go knight d2. He can go c3. He can go bishop a4, and he can go bishop takes c6. So let's real fast go through those one by one. If white goes castles, this move is not scary. You just go knight d4, and already black is basically 100% equal. What is the idea? If white takes, you take back, and you castle, and white has no threats. If white goes back to a4, all you have to do is here, you just go knight takes f3, queen takes, and castles, and you're fine. You just go d6, h6, rook, bishop e6, whatever you want. Black is just fine. Now, if white goes bishop c4 here after knight d4, here taking on f3 is a little bit riskier. You can do it. It works. The reason it's a little harder is with the queen on f3 and the bishop on c4. That is sort of the scholar's mate setup. White has some pressure on f7 there. So, for example, if you take the knight, white takes back, and this pressure on f7 is annoying. Now, no, you're not getting checkmated, but it's a little more activity than I want white to have. So, instead, all you do here, d6, then castles, then perhaps bishop e6, and you're doing just fine. Black is fine. If white takes the knight here, knight takes d4, you take back with the bishop, and again, castles, and you're fine. I may have covered that. Overall, black is fine. And if white does absolutely nothing here, you can always capture the bishop, so white has to respond to that threat too. So black, if white castles, knight d4, and black is doing just fine. Now, knight b d2 against this move here, knight b d2 instead of short castles. Technically, you can jump into d4 right away. I recommend castling first. There's a very specific reason for that. If you go knight d4 first, white has some ideas based on a fast c3 and d4 that are annoying. If you castle first, you don't really give white those options. So the main line here goes castles, castles, and then you go knight d4, and here you're just fine as black. You can also go rook e8, intending a fast a6 and h6. That is also very, very good. Knight d4 is a little simpler, a little cleaner, but either way, you're fine. You're just fine. All right, what else can white do? White can go knight to c3. What do you do here? You guessed it. You just go knight d4. And this is sort of a position from the 4 knights Ruy Lopez, where white went d3, you went bishop c5. The standard ideas apply. If white takes the pawn, you can go queen e7 or castles, and you're doing just fine. For example, knight takes e5, castles, bishop c4, d6, knight f3, bishop g4. You damage the pawn structure. We've seen it all before. Black is fine. What about the move here, bishop e3? Now, bishop e3 is annoying. I find it very annoying. The annoying part about this is it's tough to punish this move. White can kind of just stay in the game for a while. If you're better than white, if you're a better player, it's hard to really press for a win, but there are ways to do it. So here, pretty much whenever white goes bishop e3 in the Italian or the Ruy Lopez, I recommend just taking it. Just take the bishop. It's not complicated. Take it. White takes back. You castle. He castles. you go d6, and the game is just equal. There's not much you have to worry about. White really can't attack. You can go, for example, bishop e6, knight e7, knight g6, c6, whatever you want. You're fine. And the only dangerous idea, like if white could go, for example, queen e1, queen g3, and try and get an attack on the king side, in theory, that would be dangerous, but in practice, it's not anything to worry about. For example, if white goes queen e1, what you do here, knight e7, continuing your plan of knight e7 to g6, you want this knight teleported all the way to g6. So here, if white goes queen g3, this is actually a big mistake. What you do is you go c6, driving back the bishop and also freeing up the queen to go to b6. So bishop c4, queen b6, and here you fork the pawn on e3 as well as the pawn on b2. You're going to win a pawn. Black gets a huge edge here, so nothing to worry about. So bishop e3, you just take it and you're fine. The other ideas here for white, well, he has one more annoying line and then the two main lines. The annoying line is bishop a4. Now, this looks insane. White retreats his bishop and does absolutely nothing, but keep in mind, Magnus Carlsen was, I think, the first one to play this at the high level. He played it against Peter Svidler, the Russian grandmaster, back in maybe 2015, something like that. Comment down below if you know when this game was played. I think it was 2015. But anyway, what is White's idea? It's simple. He wants to go c3 and then bishop c2. And the reason this works, if you go back to c4 and you want to go to c2, you have to go c4, b3, c2. With this move, white can go to c2 in one tempo, and there's sort of an idea behind it, but don't worry, black is fine as usual. You castle, you go d6, you go knight e7, intending knight g6, maybe c6, d5, and so on. For example, bishop c2, knight g6, black goes c6 and then d5, black is fine. And if white attacks here, you just go back. Bishop b6, you're just fine. This knight defends e5. Again, you're fine. Absolutely nothing to worry about. The computer gives white the tiniest microscopic advantage you'll ever see, so it's basically equal. So bishop a4, nothing to worry about. What now? White has two main ideas here. The two main lines, when white goes d3, 4d3 in the Berlin, and black goes bishop c5, the two main ideas are c3 and bishop takes c6. So c3, let's start with that. If white does that, the simplest way to counter this as black, I've checked, I've really looked into this. The simplest strategy for black, you castle and you go d5. So castles, and d5. This is the idea. If white takes, you take back with the queen, you're doing fine. Your queen is very, very well centralized. Your bishop can go to g4. Your rook can go to e8. You may want to go a6 later. Black is fine. And if white ever goes, say, bishop c4, you can go to either d6 or d8 with the queen. The bishop is targeting the queen, therefore you do have to do something about that. So d6 and d8 are both great, and black's fine. You have nothing to worry about here. If instead, if white goes, say, knight d2, and if you don't mind equal-ish, symmetrical-ish positions as black, all you have to do, you take the pawn, you go queen e7. And here, black is essentially equal. There's not much white has. For example, the main line goes queen e2, a5, gaining space on the queen side, a4, white does the same. And then all you do, knight b8. What's the idea? Knight b7 and c6. And white has nothing here. It's just equal. White really doesn't have anything here. For example, I don't know, rook d1, c6, bishop c4, knight d7. It's almost completely symmetrical. White has a rook on d1. That's about it. So very, very easy. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Now, if white goes bishop takes c6, this, in my opinion, is the most interesting line here. And if I had to pick one line to recommend against the Berlin as white, like if you want an interesting line with lots of ideas, lots of strategies, this would be it. This line is rather difficult to play against because white has so many ideas. Here, you take back with the D pawn, and very importantly, is this pawn on e5 hanging? No, it is not. If white takes, what you do, queen d4, you threaten checkmate, and you threaten the knight. If white drops back with the knight, you checkmate white. Talk about punishing white out of the opening in the Ruy Lopez opening. Instead, if white goes, say, castles, you take the knight. So overall, this is not a threat. You don't worry about that. So if that's not the idea, what is white's idea? Well, he gives up his bishop for the knight. He sort of damages black's pawn structure. And very importantly, in this pawn structure, where does black want the knight and where does he want the bishop? The bishop here, it belongs on d6. And this knight, it belongs on e7. And it's very hard to get the knight to e7 quickly. So black here, his pieces are a little bit misplaced, and that does give white a little something to play for. Now, the computer here says equal, but that's not the entire story. As you play through the moves, the computer tends to think white has some chance for an edge. Black can still equalize, but it's a very interesting line. Fabiano Caruana, as white, plays this a lot. He might be the biggest expert in this as white. So if you want to see from white's perspective how to play this, Fabiano Caruana is your guy. On the other hand, as black, if you want to see the best black player here, in my opinion, Wesley So, the American Filipino grandmaster. Wesley So is like the absolute maestro as black in this position. So do a database search in ChessBase and wherever. Wesley So is your hero as black. All right. What the heck is going on? So obviously, the knight on f6, it belongs on e7. The bishop belongs on d6. But black doesn't necessarily want to waste 2 tempos doing that, or 3. That would be too slow. So what are black's ideas? Well, in general, the 2 plans I recommend, depending on what white does, one is we go knight d7, dropping our knight back, and then castles, and maybe f6, bolstering our pawn. That is one plan. The other plan, if white does certain things, we're actually going to go queen to e7, bishop g4, and long castles. It really depends on what white does. So, real fast, if white castles, in this might be the main line. This might be white's strongest line here. What we do, queen e7, intending bishop g4 and long castles. And against almost no matter what white does, we can do that. For example, knight d2, we go bishop g4 and long castles. If white goes, say, c3, we go bishop g4, long castles. Now, there's one really cute line here. If white goes h3 in this position, he stops our idea of bishop g4. That is annoying. However, Vladimir Kramnik, good old Vladimir Kramnik, everyone's favorite online chess cheating accuser kind of guy, he found a brilliant move for black here. It is the top engine line. He played it all the way back in, say, 2014, maybe, against Levon Aronian in a very important classical game. Rook g8. This move, what you do here, you literally go rook g8 and caveman style, you go g5, g4, and just wipe white off the board. That's what you do. So it's good for black. You do this. Otherwise, you go bishop g4 and long castles. That is the main line. That is castles. The other, arguably second main line is knight bd2. Here, white's idea, he wants to go knight c4 and pressure your pawn on e5 right away with 2 knights. The only real way to defend is knight d7, intending f6. Now, there are other ideas, but this is the best line by far for black. Now, again, I misspoke. There are other ideas. Black can go bishop d6. Black can go queen e7. Black can go bishop g4. But the strongest, simplest, easiest, most straightforward, bulletproof way to crush white here, not crush him, but get a good game, just go knight d7. The point being, you want to go f6 and castles. So, for example, knight c4, pressuring the pawn, f6, castles. Now, here you can castle. You can also go knight to f8. It's a very sophisticated idea. For example, bishop e3, bishop takes, knight e6. Now, this knight can go to d4 or f4. depending on what it needs. So black here, totally fine. Those are the two main ideas, knight d2 and castles. Again, if castles, queen e7 is your move. If knight d2, then knight d7 is your move. Now, what else can white do real fast? c3 is playable. The idea being white wants to go d4 really fast. In that case, bishop d6 and then bishop e6, maybe intending castles, or maybe intending queen e7 and long castles. That is your idea. And the reason bishop d6 works here is white is going to get in a tempo with d4. Therefore, you go back immediately and defend e5. So it's a very good plan by black. Now, if white goes h3, the easiest play here is knight d7. Now, queen e7 is a little bit less good because bishop g4 isn't really possible. Therefore, knight d7 is good for black. If white goes knight c3, here either plan works, but I like queen e7 the most. Again, bishop g4, long castles, etc. If white goes bishop e3, that is playable. What we do here, we take, white takes, we go queen d6, defend e5, and now we can castle short, or we can go bishop g4 and castle long here. Either way works. If white goes bishop g5, white can also do this. In this position, what you do is queen d6, followed by bishop g4 and long castles. And the reason you go to d6, not e7, is on e7, the bishop would be pinning the knight to the queen. That's annoying. Instead, d6 avoids that problem, and black is just fine here. So that is everything. Again, the two main ideas by white. If white goes, say, castles, then queen e7. If white goes knight d2, then knight d7. Everything else is pretty easy as well. Now, on to the absolute main line of the Berlin. The Berlin castles. This is white's main move. Now, here in this position, the strongest move for black, the Berlin move, the move I recommend, you take the pawn. Knight takes e4. Now, here, white has two options, rook e1 and d4. Against either move, what you do is knight d6. If white goes rook e1, knight d6. If white goes d4, knight d6. That is the Berlin way here. So very simple. And that's about all white can do. There's not much else. If white goes, say, knight c3, you just take the knight. If white goes d3, chasing your knight back, you just go to f6. Like, these are the only two good moves for white here, rook e1 and d4. So let's start with rook e1. This move is very good. It might even be the stronger of the two moves, at least according to Stockfish. So rook e1, what is white doing? He's pressuring our knight. Our knight must move. We go knight d6. This is the key idea here for black. If you go, say, d5, white can go d3, and there's just too many threats here. This is good for white. Don't do this. Just go back, knight d6. Now, on d6, you are pressuring the bishop. White must respond to that. He must do something. So what can white do? Well, pretty much the only good idea here is going to be knight takes e5. Now, if white does this, you cannot take the bishop right away, because then white has these discovered check ideas with, like, knight takes c6, the rook is the king, and so on. That's really ugly. Now, knight takes e5 is the best move for white here, but at the amateur level, I play this online. I play it online at about a 2000 level. And here's black. Pretty much the only thing I face as white, the only thing I face as black when I play black that white does is this move. He takes the knight. I get this literally over and over and over in my games. I don't know why. Black here is already better. According to the engine, black, it's a very easy game. It's just very good for black. So why does white do this? I have no idea, but this is all I face. So all you do here, you take the bishop with the d-pawn. White takes on e5. Now, your plan here, bishop e7, followed by castles, and from there you're fine. For example, if white goes, say, d4 or knight c3, d4, castles, knight c3. Here, your basic setup is going to be rook to e8, potentially f6, driving back that knight. And don't worry, f6 here is very good for black. This is one of the rare positions where f6 actually works. So, for example, rook e8, White does anything, we go f6, driving back that knight. From here, we can go bishop f8. We can go bishop f5. We can go bishop or knight f5. Black is just fine. Black is a very, 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 very easy game here. So don't worry about it. Very easy game. Now, what else can white do? Knight takes e5 is the main move from white here. This is the strongest move. And again, there is no time to capture this bishop. If you do that, you're going to lose immediately. White goes, for example, knight takes c6 or whatever he wants, and he has the discovered check on the king. You are busted. Don't do that. Bad idea. Bad idea. So don't do that. Instead, the move for black here is bishop e7. Now, with the e file being blocked, you are now threatening the bishop. So white has to do something about that. Now, if white takes your knight, you take back, and it's a transposition to the other line, where again, black goes castles, rook e8, bishop f8, maybe f6, and so on, and black is fine. Black's better here. So bishop takes is not a threat at all. The main move for white here is bishop f1. So white's idea, he goes rook e1, bishop f1, and white is a little bit faster in development. He's castled, we have not. His rook's on the e file, ours is not. So white here is a tiny bit better, but black should be fine if he knows what he's doing. The main line goes knight takes, rook takes, castles. Now here, white usually goes d4. That is the best way to control the center. Here, our plan is very simple. Bishop f6 and then rook e8. For example, bishop f6, rook e1, rook e8. And now here, white has two main options. Number one, you take the rook. Number two, you don't take the rook and you do something else. If white takes the rook, what we do is knight takes e8, and here black is relatively fine. Our plan is d5, and from there we go perhaps knight d6, and we're doing just fine. If white goes a4, we go a5. If white goes, say, c3, we go d5. If white goes knight c3, we go d5. The only challenging idea here by white is d5, and the reason it's challenging is black can't go d5 himself, but this is also not dangerous. Our plan here is d6 and then c6, and we're fine. It's that simple. Now, if white does not take the rook on e8, if white plays anything else, let's say he plays the move c3, a common idea, then we take white's rook. Rook takes, queen takes, and now here the move you have to play is knight to e8. The reason you play this, black's only problem here, if black could play d5 in one move, he'd be equal on the spot. This is totally equal. But of course, black cannot do that. So what you do, you drop back and then you go d5. So for example, bishop f4, d5, and here your plan is very, very simple. g6, knight g7, and bishop f5, and black is equal. For example, bishop d3, g6, knight d2, knight g7, knight f3, and bishop f5, and takes and takes. And black is just 1000% equal, white is nothing. So that is how you deal with this line, rook e1, 5, rook e1. Now, white has one other line. That is the notorious Berlin endgame, starting with the move d4. And we're going to cover that as well. And don't worry, almost no one at the amateur level plays the Berlin endgame. Yes, you should still watch this, still understand this line. Just know white normally doesn't play this. Even at the grandmaster level, white just does not play it very often. So there's not much you have to know here, but it's still good to know this stuff. So d4, what does black do here? He goes knight d6, as usual. If white goes rook e1, knight d6. If white goes d4, knight d6. Very, very simple. So, knight d6. Now here, the main move for white is bishop takes c6. That is the main line for white. If white doesn't do that, what else can white do? Well, he can take this pawn. If he doesn't do that, though, I mean, if white goes, like, I don't know, a4, you can just go e4 or e takes, and you're doing great as black. So if white takes this pawn, this leads to a forced draw. And there's really no good way for either side to avoid it. The way the forced draw works is you take the bishop, And now here, this knight on b5, it's trapped. It can't go here, can't go here, can't go here, can't go here or here, obviously, can't go here. White's controlling all of these squares with the pawns or the knights. So what white does, he goes a4, winning this knight. Now here, what you do, you jump into d4, you give back the piece, white takes, black takes, white takes, and then you go d5. Now here, if white just goes, say, knight c3, you can go, say, bishop e6, and you're doing great. You might even be a little better. So what white does here, he captures the pawn en passant. He does that, you take back. And now here, if you go for an endgame, if white goes for an endgame, you are a little better as you do have two bishops. Therefore, white is sort of forced to do this line. Queen e6, queen e4, sorry, queen e6, queen d4, queen d6, queen e4, queen e6, and it's just a draw. It's a draw on the spot. So it's a threefold draw by repetition. So this line by white, not dangerous. You take the bishop, go for the draw, call it a day. I've almost never faced this as black. Don't worry about it. If you're an amateur, white will almost never go for a forced draw. So if you don't like forced draws, don't worry about it. There are draws everywhere in chess and every opening. You'll almost never face this. Not a big deal. Now, if white takes the knight, that is the main line, and we are headed for, drumroll please, the Berlin endgame, the most notorious endgame in chess. Here's how it goes. We take the bishop. White takes the pawn. We go knight f5. White takes the queen. We take the queen. Bang. Berlin endgame in the house. What is the idea here? Well, first of all, queens are off the board. We have sort of an endgame or a queenless middle game, whatever you want to call it. White's plan. He has 4 pawns here. 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 1, 2, 3. 4 pawns is more than 3 pawns. Therefore, white, his plan in the endgame is to push these pawns down the board, make a pass pawn, and win the game. That's White's plan. Black's plan, well, number one, Black's king on e8, it can't castle. You can't castle because you already moved the king. That is a problem. But Black's big trump here is his 2 bishops. He has 2 Bs, and if he can slowly untangle and slowly get his pieces to some good squares, get a good square for the king, you know, bring out the rooks, activate his pieces. If Black can do all this, he's going to have a great endgame as those 2 bishops are very, very strong in the endgame. So that's Black's plan. So what can White do here, and what should Black do in response? Well, White has 3 main moves here. Knight c3, rook d1, and h3. If White does not do one of those moves, knight c3, or rook d1, or h3, then your plan is bishop d7, king c8, and you have a great game. For example, if White goes a4, bishop d7, then king c8. If White goes b3, what you do, bishop d7, king c8. If White goes anything else, rook e1, you go bishop d7, king c8. Now, if White goes knight c3, in this line, the best line for Black is going to be bishop d7 again. Your plan is king c8. You get your king off the c file, or the d file, sorry. If White goes rook d1, you go king c8. Your king's off the d file, and you're doing fine. From there, the basic idea at some point in the future is going to be b6, c5, king b7. You get the king off the back rank, and you're doing pretty well overall. Now, beyond that, the bishop on f8, it may go to e7, and in a lot of these lines, this pawn on h7, it may go to h6, guarding g5. So here is one sample line just to kind of show you what both sides might do. Rook d1, king c8. White pins the bishop, Black gets out of the pin. White develops. Bishop f4. Black goes h6, guarding g5. A good idea in general in these lines. White goes g4, trying to gain space on the king side. Black goes knight e7, dropping back and potentially going knight g6, putting pressure on the bishop. Now, White goes h3, defending the pawn on g4. These are all computer lines, by the way. Black goes c5, intending b6 and king b7. For example, bishop g3, bishop e6, knight e4, b6, and Black's plan is king b7, a5, and so on. maybe knight g6, maybe bishop b7, maybe h5, and black is sort of slowly unwinding and getting a great game. So black is fine here. If instead of knight c3, if white goes for the move rook d1, in this position, you sort of have to go king to e8. If you block the attack with bishop d7, white is going to have some very aggressive ideas. Trust me on that. You don't want to play that. Instead, king to e8 is your move. Now, in general, if white goes rook to d1 or h3, the line I like for black is the alpha 0 line. It's where you go bishop e7, followed by knight h4, trying to trade off one pair of knights. This line for black is so simple, so easy to play as black. It's just so good for black. So, to review, if white goes rook d1, we go king to e8. Our plan is bishop e7 and then knight h4. Now, what can white do here? For example, I don't know, knight c3, bishop e7, bishop f4, and here you can just go knight h4. Knight h4, knight takes, bishop takes, and from here your plan is simple. At some point, you want to bring this bishop back to e7. At some point, this bishop goes to e6. At some point, you may want to go for move h5, gaining space on the king side. You may also want to go a5, maybe even a4 or h5 or h4. And black here is totally fine. And very importantly, with that one pair of knights off the board, as more and more pieces come off, black's bishop pair becomes more and more important. So that is one of the ideas behind knight h4. So black here doing totally fine. The computer says white is a tiny bit better, but overall black is doing perfectly fine. Now, if white goes 9h3, this is probably the main line of the Berlin endgame these days. In the past, knight c3 was the main idea, but bishop d7 is so good there that most white players instead now go h3. The idea behind h3, white wants to go g4 right away, driving back that knight, and from there, he's going to try to find a way to go f4, f5, and just push his pawns as quickly as possible. So, as black, what we do here, bishop e7. And if white goes g4, we just go knight h4. For example, g4, knight h4, knight takes, bishop takes. And here black is totally fine. The computer says plus 0.03. It's equal. Black's plan here, as usual, is potentially h5, breaking up these pawns, potentially bishop e6, potentially king e8, potentially a5, a4, and so on, and black is doing just fine. Beyond that, white can go knight c3 here. That is arguably the main line, and here black can go knight h4. You can also go h5 if you want, stopping g4 ideas. So black has quite a few ideas, and if white ever goes rook d1, just go king to e8. And that's kind of all you need to know here as black. It's really not super complicated. So, for example, here's one sample line. This is showing best play for both sides. Let's see. h5 here is a good move. White goes knight e2. Black goes knight h4, trading off one pair of knights. Knight takes, bishop e3, king e8, rook a1, bishop e7, f4. And here, black can actually just go f5, blocking these pawns. And if white does take here, en passant, black can actually take back with the g-pawn, damaging his pawn structure, but in return, you do get the open g-file for the rook, and this is quite useful. And if white goes f5, you just go king f7, and here black is fine. So overall, 0.00 equal game. Black is just fine. So the Berlin endgame is very easy. If white goes h3, you go bishop e7. If white goes rook d1, you go king to e8 and then bishop e7. If white does literally anything else, knight c3, bishop to f4, a4, whatever else, bishop d7 and king c8 is the move. It's very good for black. So that pretty much covers the Berlin endgame and really the entire Berlin defense from black's perspective. So going back here, if I can find a way to talk, it's late here, and finish this video. In the Berlin, bishop b5, knight f6. In this position, what can white do? He can take here, but it's not good. Black takes back, and if white ever takes on e5, black goes queen d4, and you win the knight or the pawn, and black is very, very good. If white goes bishop d3, you take on e4, followed by d5, and maybe even followed by e4, and you're doing great. If white goes knight c3, you have three main options as black. Bishop b4 is the solid idea. Bishop d6 is the weird, quirky idea. And finally, knight d4 is my favorite. That is the more aggressive, tactical idea. Again, rewatch that part of the video. If white goes for the idea of, let's see, d4, what you do, you take the pawn. If white goes e5, you go knight e4. If white castles, you take the pawn in the spirit of the Italian opening, and you are doing just fine. If white goes for, what else can white do here? I'm trying to make sure I'm covering everything. Queen e2. That is the other idea. If white goes queen e2, your plan is simple. Bishop c5, castles, d6, maybe knight e7, g6, and you're fine. It's equal already. Black might even be a little bit better out of the opening. Now, if white goes d3, that is one of the two strong moves here. Then you go bishop c5, the Italian style move. Now here, white has a lot of options. If white does not go c3 or bishop takes, knight d4 is probably a good move. If white castles, go knight d4. If white goes knight c3, go knight d4. If white goes knight d2, go castles and then knight d4. If white goes c3, what you do here, you castle and then go d5, and you're fine. If white goes bishop takes, this is a very complicated, difficult line. Again, study Wesley So's games as black. Wesley So, the American Filipino grandmaster, he's very, very good as black here. What you do is d takes, and the two main lines are castles and knight b d2. If white castles, go queen e7, and then bishop g4, and then long castles. If white goes knight b d2, his idea is knight c4. In that case, knight d7 is the strongest idea, intending f6 and short castles. And white has other ideas, but watch that part of the video to get all of them. Now, if white castles, that is the main idea. We take the pawn. Now, there are two good options for white, rook e1 and d4. If white goes rook e1, we go knight d6. If white goes d4, we go knight d6. So if white goes rook e1, knight d6, if white takes the knight, that is the most common move here in Blitz, in online Blitz. You should be very happy there. Takes, knight takes, bishop e7. Your plan is simple. Castles, rook e8, maybe f6, maybe knight f5, maybe bishop f5, maybe bishop f8. Whatever happens, you're fine as black. If white does not do that, if white takes here, what you do, bishop e7, and the main line continues bishop f1, knight takes, rook takes, castles. Your plan is bishop f6, then rook e8, and you're basically fine. Unless you play Magnus Carlsen. If you're playing Magnus and Magnus is white, you're in trouble. He's very good at these lines. If you're not playing Magnus, you should be okay. So keep that in mind. Now, finally, white can play the Berlin endgame with the move knight f6, castles, knight takes, then d4. In that case, knight d6 is the move. If white takes here, you take the bishop, and it leads to sort of a forced draw. If white goes bishop takes, that is the main move. D takes, knight f5, queen takes, king takes. If white goes h3, we go bishop e7, intending knight h4 or maybe h5 first. If white goes rook d1, we go king to e8 here, intending bishop e7 and knight h4 or maybe h5 first. If white does not do those two moves, if white does anything else, literally anything else, anything you could imagine, we go bishop d7 and then king to c8, followed by the plan of b6, c5, maybe bishop e7, maybe h6, maybe knight e7, and black is doing fine. So that is pretty much everything you need to know in the Berlin opening as black in the Ruy Lopez. So if white plays this opening against you, the Ruy Lopez, you go knight f6 and you're fine. And you get a great game. And if white is not careful, you can even punish white out of the opening with some very simple ideas. So that is it, Chess YouTube. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do me a huge favor. If you found value out of this video, all you have to do for me, hit that like button and comment down below what you thought of the video, what you liked. Even just give me a thumbs up. Give me a thumbs up in the comments. It all helps. And beyond that, if you got value out of this video, if you think I might know what I'm talking about here, if you think I might have a thing or two that I can teach you about chess, and if you think you might want to learn from me, I have a free chess community. The link is in the description below. Just go to the description of this video, click on that link. You'll go to a page on school.com. Just click join. It's 100% free to join my community. There are no tricks. It's all free. In my community, you get direct access to me. You can directly ask me your questions. When you join, I will personally DM you asking about what your rating is, what your goals are, how I can help you. So number one, you get direct access to me. Number two, you get group coaching with me for free. Once or twice a week, I offer free group coaching. I'm still figuring it out. On that coaching call, they usually last about 2 to 3 hours. You can ask me whatever question you want. I'm also happy to analyze your own games and literally tell you in real time where you're going wrong and what you need to do to improve, regardless of what your skill level is. If you're rated less than 2,000, trust me, I can help you. And finally, you get access to a free chess course. I'm literally building out a comprehensive free chess course where everything is included on how to reach 1,500, even 2,000 ELO online. So again, the link is down below in the description of this video. You get direct access to me, free group coaching, and a free online chess course. If that sounds interesting to you, click on the link in the description. And real fast, why am I doing this? I'm very confident that a portion of you who go to my community and join there and get value out of that, I'm very confident a portion of you will want to work with me directly one-on-one. And by the end of this month, this video was filmed in the beginning of March 2025. By the end of this month, April 2025, by the end of April, by early May, I will have a one-on-one coaching offer available. If you want to work directly with me, you will have the option of doing that. And I'm very confident a portion of you who go through all of this, who get value out of these videos and the community, I'm very confident some of you will work with me. So that is the ultimate goal of all of this. And if you work with me directly, I guarantee you, you will hit your chess goals so much faster than you could believe. So that's everything. Again, if you want to work directly with me, join the community. The link is in the description, and I will offer one-on-one coaching in the very near future. So that's it. This is your comprehensive Berlin defense repertoire. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, smash that like button, comment down below. And if you got value out of this, I will see you in the next video.